Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time, Voyager again, Emanations. Emanations, I'm going to say Emanations more in this intro than you've ever heard or used the word in your life, or even in the episode maybe. Emanations, speaking of emanations, we're emanating things on Facebook. Get some emanations there. Lots of fun memes and stuff. Check it out, laugh at it, like it. Subscribe? No, don't subscribe. Just follow us on there and engage with us. Tell us what you think about the podcast, especially if you love it. Otherwise, maybe just tell all your friends. It's all been tracked before on Facebook. And we're going to emanate some more. This is Emanations, Voyager. It's all been tracked before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your skeleton crew is here.
This is Steven.
Jimmy-Jerome, and that's it. We'll have a video message from Shane later with his thoughts. No sign of Keith, but we're still checking the Delta Quadrant for him. Maybe we'll find a wormhole or a subspace. I don't even remember what they were called in this episode. Subspace
vacuole, I think is what.
Is that like vacuum something? I don't know. You get sucked into another area.
I meant to look that up and see if it was just psychobabble. I'm looking it up as we speak. A space or vesicle within the cytoplasm of a cell enclosed by a membrane and typically containing fluid. A small cavity or space in tissue, especially in nervous tissue, as a result of disease.
Okay.
Well,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Well, first impressions of Emanations.
You know, much like last week, for what it is, I thought it was fine. It almost feels like I couldn't decide what headline it was ripping from, kind of a thing, of the week kind of a thing. Although that said, I thought, we get into the whole conversation about the afterlife, which I think is interesting. And, I think Gene Roddenberry would have loved all this discussion about the afterlife and religion and that kind of stuff, Even though we really don't get into a conversation about a God, we get into a conversation, about what's next and all that kind of stuff. So I thought some of that was interesting. I thought some of it was interesting because we got a little bit of just the folks on this planet, not necessarily our people. But yeah, so I thought it was fine. I thought there was some interesting stuff. I didn't love it. I can't say I loved it, but as you said last weekend, we talked about going into it. It went different places than I thought, but I don't know that I loved them.
Yeah, it did. I agree. It did go to different places. I think there were some interesting philosophical discussions. I do think maybe this almost was less than the sum of its parts because it didn't feel as interesting as I feel like it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I think that's a good assessment.
I meant to look up how many periodic. Okay, so the periodic table contains 118 elements as of today. In Voyager, apparently, by the 24th century, there are 246 because they find the 247.
Okay.
Which I guess makes sense because we've identified a lot more in the last few decades. I don't know about now, but like leading up to the couple decades before this episode aired. So I guess we've doubled the periodic table by the time you get to Voyager era.
I'm glad you looked that up because that was my first question was how far have we gotten between now and then? So that's cool.
Yeah, we need to about double it. But then they find this element and they beam over to it. It's exciting, undeniably. Janeway's a scientist. It's a science vessel. So I'm not gonna yuck their yum or whatever. But they beam over and this asteroid apparently has an atmosphere. What's up with that?
Yeah, they say it looks like most of these asteroids support Class M atmospheres. And as I was watching with a friend of mine, I said to her, I was like, there's a lot of Class M stuff out here.
Yeah, and asteroids aren't usually one of them because you need an atmosphere, and it's hard to have an atmosphere on an asteroid.
Right.
And it was a way to not have to get out spacesuits because they probably haven't built them yet. The budget for spacesuits is rough, but that was disappointing. They beam in, and my first thought is it's definitely a giant spider, right?
Right.
Were you waiting for the giant spider creature to come crawling out?
Yeah, I was, yes. So
I mean, I guess kudos for fooling us in that way, but also then at the end I ended up being disappointed there was no giant spider based on the way the stuff was.
They call him a Class 5 humanoid. Is that the same? Is that what you find on Class M planets?
I mean, I assume that if there's at least 5 different classes of humanoid. But when I Google Class 5 humanoid, the only mention of it on Memory Alpha is this episode.
That's what I was gonna say.
So there's also an entry for a Class 3 humanoid from the Voyager episode The Phage. So the Vidians are Class 3 humanoids. Just so you know.
Okay.
But what makes the Vidians a Class 3 and makes what's the species? The Vorni a Class 5?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know what the difference is. And when I look on Memory Alpha, they don't have Class 1, 2, or 4, or 6 listed. So it's just 3 and 5. I don't know. I guess in a Next Generation episode, The Ensigns of Command, they said there was a Class R3 life form.
Okay.
But that was a very different looking life form. It didn't look very humanoid, whereas
Mhm.
the Vidians and the Vorni look pretty humanoid, just with makeup or whatever, rubber stuff on them. So whatever. And that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down today. Just
Sure.
I guess we just should assume that regular humanoids, as we know them, come in at least 5 classes.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, because of how Earth-centric Starfleet is, that humans are Class 1.
Yes. I think.
Although it can't be the amount of loaf or makeup they get determines how many classes, because the Vidians had way more than the Vorni, and the Vidians were only a 3 and they were a 5. So it must be something different than exterior difference. We'll see.
Sure.
Anyway, they beam over. Chakotay's extremely concerned about protecting the bodies.
Yeah.
And Kim doesn't give 2 craps. He's like, heck, I'm just going to study them. I do think not using a scanner and just doing eyes only was a bit much, Chakotay. I mean, take a chill pill.
I did
not
too.
Touching them makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, not using tricorder, I feel like could burn them here. And Chakotay is really into death.
You know, I liked his Sacred Stone story because it never tied into the fake Native American culture.
Yes.
I like that it was just a story from his past, because that's what I was worried is this is, oh God, we're going here with another fake Native American culture thing. I was really glad that wasn't the case. Just an interesting character moment that made sense for the character Chakotay. And I enjoyed him schooling Kim and Torres to a certain extent, because they're the youngins and he's been through some things. He's seen some things.
Sure.
But the not using the tricorders seemed ridiculous to me. Although I could easily see in my head, like I said, I think I mentioned this last week. I don't think I've seen this episode before, but I could easily see in my head a situation where we get like Justice, where you accidentally step. Sorry, now I'm the one bringing up Justice.
Right.
Where you accidentally step across the line and you don't know you're intruding. The tricorder scan could technically be intruding. I could see that causing a problem, but I still think they should have just tried the tricorders, and if it caused a problem, it caused a problem.
Yeah.
That's pretty non-obtrusive. Janeway even said passive scans. So like a version of the tricorder scan that's less invasive. And he still was like, nope, eyes only.
I mean, when they use their sensors on an entire planet, it's got to hit dead people, right? Because that's how they know there's no people that are alive or not or whatever. So.
Not in Voyager. Ever since Chakotay came on board, he refigured all the sensors so they no longer, they hit a coffin and they stop. I was very excited to see Seska, the transporter. We've seen her before, we mentioned her, and now she's finally in her gold uniform. When we got a body instead of Kim, I for a second thought that was Kim wrapped in the gauze.
Me too. I did too. Yeah.
Okay.
And she says, and I would hate to hear this on either end of a transporter, have everyone stand closer together. I'm going to try a blind beam out. Like, that doesn't sound good. And it wasn't. But not her fault. Not her fault.
Oh, it wasn't. And what confused me was that the body she got hadn't been in the cavern. That somehow like a vacuole had opened and she got it. Whereas I just assumed she would have beamed a body they were staying next to, which would have made more sense to me. I don't know why we need to add that extra layer in, other than that gives the caveat that they're barely dead and we can now revive them. But I don't want to get too deep into it, but we've told you Seska is a reoccurring character. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts or opinions or predictions about her yet based on what you've seen? Like what type of person she is or what type of story she might be part of?
She seems very take charge. I'll give her that. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Almost a Ro Lauren type in that regard.
Yeah. So I feel like
both Bajoran.
Yeah. So and she's trying blind beam out. So yeah, I think she's not afraid, I will say. Yeah. So
And
yeah.
I think I probably, when I see her, I think I probably think of her the way you think of Liddell. I'm like, oh, take charge,
Yeah.
Burnett. I'm into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see that too. Yeah.
I have seen enough of Voyager to know where Seska's story is going. I was just curious at this point because I don't think they've given us enough breadcrumbs to figure her out yet. But I like that there's Seska.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is something I've been beating to death for our last couple of years on here, and maybe I already asked this question, but do you think it's just because we already know it's the 90s, but if you looked at this without, like, let's say you saw a still from this with none of the Star Trek people, none of the Voyager people, would you be like, oh, that's 90s sci-fi? Would you be able to be like, that's the 90s? Yeah, I feel that way too. And I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
Or early aughts sci-fi channel. SYFY channel.
Yes, definitely in that range. And again, whenever I think of that, I don't necessarily think of that in a bad way, because there are a lot of those shows I liked either because I thought they were good or because I thought they were cheesy good or whatever. They were worth just for fun, kind of a thing. So
the vacuole apparently is how people get in because Kim ends up in the coffin. That was so bizarre. It's like, to me, the other thing I kept thinking of when they were walking along, they saw the bodies was, okay, these aliens are going to show up to bury a new body and they're going to find you and they're going to be mad you're intruding. I did not see coming the way the whole thing actually worked at all. I will give him credit for there. You developed a new one on me. This was an original story.
Yeah.
Speaking of 90s sci-fi, and I'll bring this up because you just mentioned it, this was written by Brannon Braga, who went from Voyager to Enterprise, but then the early aughts, like I think Enterprise was done 2005. So like 2005 to 2010, he made a couple of failed science fiction shows that aired on broadcast TV. So very much of the time sci-fi guy. Directed by David Livingston, one of our regulars. Just throwing that out now so we don't have to remember later. Right. There's definitely some time. Is it time travel or dimensional travel involved with these vacuoles?
It's a good question.
Or is it just spatial? Because Kim seemed to indicate like it's your planet, we're in orbit, and he's like, but there's rings, and they're like, there's no rings. So that made me think it was time travel, but then I'm like, it could be dimension, or it could just be that's not really their planet the Voyager's near.
Or is he saying they're not rings, they're whatever that emanation thing?
I don't think so. Okay. I don't think so. I don't think that if they were there, Voyager could have found them.
Yeah.
If they were just in the planet the rings were around.
To go back to Kim waking up in that pod or whatever, I feel like that could have been played. I know not to make light of people dying and stuff, but it seems like that could be a more humorous situation on some level.
It should have been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that could almost be a Voyage home scene, and in a funny way.
And Kim plays it very like, and I guess maybe this is a good thing. He's not freaking out, but I feel like he should be freaking out a little more. Like, what the hell's going on here?
He's pounding.
Yeah.
Tuvok wouldn't even pound. Tuvok would just sit there and listen.
But yeah. So I thought it was.
So we find out the webbing is them decomposing, and at that point, I was a little bit grossed out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what the equivalent is. I guess like blood and stuff just sloughing off your body. Skin like peeling off. It's gross.
They said it was a naturally occurring stuff leaving your body, right? Yeah.
But it's gross to me. And then the fact that they walked through bodies essentially. So all the other webbing that wasn't near the bodies was other bodies that had already decomposed enough that they were just webbing. That's creepy.
Yeah. Which it's death. Just to go back a little, Hatil says of Kim, he said he saw dead people. And all I could think of was The Sixth Sense, that he sees dead people.
Yes,
and I was like,
I thought the same thing.
Kim was dead the whole time.
So Hatil is played by Jeffrey Allen Chandler, best known for La Bamba. One episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine from season 3 that we haven't seen yet. So coming up soon. 2 episodes of ER. And then the 2000 TV movie Sally Hemings: An American Scandal.
Wow.
He's got 43 credits. Like I said, 1 DS9, 1 Voyager. The Voyager came first. Yeah. 9 episodes of Cop Rock.
Oh, wow.
He played Ray Rodbart. I'm trying to remember if that guy was in the pilot or not. Because I don't recall. Let me and there's no image on IMDb. Yeah, so Cop Rock has a wiki, and he's listed for the pilot. I don't know what this actor looks like though, and yeah, cannot find anything online about what Ray Roddenberry looks like. It's just showing me random pictures of Cop Rock on the Google image search.
I think he's the. I think he might be the guy who's internal affairs. Remember that guy? I think.
Okay. Okay.
I think.
Interesting.
And
I mean, yeah. Ray Robert is the character's name. I guess I should have been looking up the actor, Jeffrey Allen Chandler, to see what he looks like.
No.
Oh, okay. There's some images of him on here. Yeah, so in this, he also been looks like a mummy in a Dookie Howser episode.
Yeah,
but
I keep seeing that too.
I don't recognize him from Cop Rock though. Yeah, well, doesn't matter. We'll look him up later. But yeah, his character, was that like the D plot, the E plot, like at the beginning of the episode where we had scenes of him and I don't know, his wife perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I assume. I'm trying to figure out who that character's name even was. But Arya was his wife. Arya, played by Robin Groves, best known for Silver Bullet, the movie Silver, The Nesting, and this episode of Voyager. This is her only Star Trek credit. And she has no Cop Rock credits, unfortunately. She has 13 credits total. But their little subplot in the beginning of like, you're going to die. No, I've changed my mind. What? How dare you?
Yeah.
I was with Kim when he's like, we had a family meeting and we all decided it would be best if I die. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
Well, and I couldn't decide from that. I mentioned ripped from the headlines or whatever. Like, are we talking like, I thought it was somewhere between Carousel from like Logan's Run, like it's your time to die kind of talk, and also assisted suicide kind of stuff. So it was again, I thought it was all interesting, but I wasn't sure where they were trying to go. And there's a lot of
my whole alternate episode is let's do a whole story from his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And like this alien shows up and he questions his beliefs, because that to me was the most interesting part of this episode, and they barely touched on it. That my beliefs have been called into question, and then the solution to that, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but the solution was, okay, Kim needs his ride home, so you go out in the mountains, and then you don't have to die this way. Instead, you're gonna die in pain, alone, with nobody to feed or take care of you at all. It's not a more humane solution. That's awful. No. It would be better to put him in the pod.
Yeah.
Although I did notice, still jump ahead spot. Apparently in the pod they kill you before they send you through the vacuole. Those little prods.
Oh, yeah.
They kill you. That is a suicide pod.
I thought Kim gave into that too. He's like, well, I gave a good fight. I'm just going to take it or whatever, I'm like, what are you doing exactly? So,
I mean, I think he should have sat up and not let those things touch him. I think there was enough room.
Yeah. And
surely other people in that pod situation, because they're so surprised when he knocks to get out the beginning, surely other people have been in that situation, had second thoughts the last minute, saw the prods coming in, sat up and avoided them because there was enough room to do that. Like, so the knocking, I would think your first thought isn't, that's weird, they're still alive. Your first thought is, oh, they didn't take what we told them to take.
Right.
They didn't take their.
Yeah.
That doesn't totally make sense to me.
And then on the opposite side of Kim's reaction of like, what? Where am I? This is weird. Again, where am I? And there's Patera being like mad that she's not in this special world, and it's like, you're alive. What are you talking about? And then she got what she wanted. She got to be dead. So, congratulations, honey. You got what you wanted.
I completely agree with your assessment of the Patera story. Played by Cecil Collin, best known for this episode of Voyager.
Yep.
Angels Twice Descending as a writer.
Yeah.
Acting in Who's That Girl and Let's Get Harry. 26 credits. Only Star Trek, no Cop Rock.
I would have been willing to pay $10-$20 if she was on a Seinfeld just from watching the episode, but I was
no. No.
I was wrong.
While we're talking guest stars real quick, because I've got lots to say about Batara, a number of notes. The last one we haven't done of note is Dr. Near, played by the great Jerry Hardin. Wonderful character actor, 169 credits.
Yeah.
I don't see a death date on here, so maybe he's still alive, even though at this point he'd be 95 years old. Yeah. But his last credit was 2014, and his regular series of credits stopped around 2009. But definitely somebody I know from 90s and early aughts TV.
Oh my God! Yeah,
clearly active well through the 80s, 70s.
Yeah.
Actually, mostly the 70s and 80s. There's a couple 60s credits, just like 3, and then a credit from 1958. In terms of Star Trek, he was in 3 episodes of The Next Generation. He was in an episode of When the Bow Breaks in season 1, but best known for 2 episodes where he played Samuel Clements in Time's Arrow parts 1 and 2. It's Samuel Clements come back to us. Did you recognize him as Mark Twain?
I did not.
I didn't either. I did not either, but again, very notable. Very notable.
I thought as many times they said emanation, I said to the person with me, I said, I would be, if this was a drinking game for every time they said emanation, I would be blacked out drunk at this point because they said it a lot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a word you don't hear a lot, I don't think. I think you hear emanate or emanates, but emanation, I don't think you hear as much. While I'm on my weird notes, there's a scene in sick bay, and I think it's Janeway, and I can't remember if she's talking to the EMH or Patera, but way in the background is Kez at some computer screen, and every once in a while she touches a few blocks of it, and then she touches it, and I'm like, is she playing like some advanced video game? Yeah. It's just like, so I enjoyed that they kept her in the scene because I still like Kez. I know there's and maybe I'll end up not liking her character, not caring about her, but I've been very frank. I just think she's cute person.
Yeah, she was.
The whole
voice
thing gets to me. But... Yeah. My next note is also about our folks. I can't remember what their species was, but do you think 4 nostrils is a plus or a minus?
You may get a little more oxygen in, but yeah.
And then part of me thought they were maybe like an appendix where you still had 4 nostrils, but 2 of them were just for show. And then one of the main guys, it looked like his main nostrils are so big that they consumed his 2 other nostrils. And then within that, I couldn't see the actual actor's nostrils. So they made so kudos to the makeup people on that. But the fact that we're having a conversation about the nostrils, I think it speaks to that's kind of an interesting choice. So there's a whole talk about Shroud, and maybe that's Patera and Janeway too. I wrote it's the Shroud. Let me see if I have that right. Sorry. There. Yeah, it's Kim and Neria and Hatil. So Terry and it is. Yeah, it's those guys. And there's this weird sound that keeps playing every couple seconds. It's a couple seconds long, and I couldn't tell if it was diegetic or within the scene, or if it was some kind of music thing. And I think it was supposed to be within the scene, like a weird sound that was going on in that waiting room on the planet or on the planet. Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting because it's an interesting choice.
So I want to give some props to David Livingston for a directing scene and a camera angle. Is when Batara wakes up, we keep getting a lot of angles of her looking up at Janeway and the Doctor, and I thought that was a really interesting way to do that scene.
Yeah, I thought so too, because I thought obviously we're like, oh no, these are the good guys, but I was like, no, I could see you just freaking out, especially if you're thinking last time you close your eyes, you're like, I'm dying. You're not the heaven I was promised, but also who are these people? And I guess was her assumption was something had gone wrong, right away. So I guess because they were telling her she was fine, but she wanted to see her brother, which is again, that's an interesting kind of Judeo-Christian kind of view, or maybe not even Judeo-Christian, but we all whatever your religious fancy. I think there's people will talk about on the other side, or seeing so and so, or somebody passes away. Well, they're with their dad or their husband or whoever now, or whatever kind of a thing. So I thought that was interesting to see someone who thought they were on the other side and was disappointed that that person wasn't there. So, which I guess makes sense. But and if there is no other side, then you won't be disappointed at all. So maybe that's what they were getting at. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to chew on here if you dig in like we are right now. But I don't know. It's kind of the way I think what you said earlier on. It's like I don't know that this episode actually gives you that. It kind of hints at those things, but I don't know we get deep into any of them.
We don't, and I wish we had gotten more. I feel like that's the afterlife stuff is really good. I mean, I like that the characters allow that they may not know what's going on. Janeway even has the line about we know less about death than like what we don't know about it. Yeah. I did think of the vacuoles though as kind of like a spectral garbage truck to take away the body. Essentially, they're like going in a garbage chute.
And I will say for all the techno babble and all that, once they're like, well, oh, this is what's going on. They think they're dropping it off an asteroid and it's supposed to go there. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. If you're just this program that's supposed to do that or whatever. So I did think at the end when, I don't remember if it's Patera or I think it's Patera, not our other guy, is finally going off to their, their place.
Patera's the girl on Voyager. You're talking about.
Yeah.
Hatil, yeah.
I was like, oh, that's a very small funeral.
I think all of them were. It seemed to be very focused on just the immediate family.
Yes, yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And those rooms aren't huge. You can't fit 100 people in there. And those pods were clearly not. You could easily just do one of those pods in a room that could seat 100 people, but for some reason they didn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe just people don't like him, so he's got the small room. I don't know.
Yeah.
They start questioning Kim as they're investigating. The aliens are questioning him. And after he says, I'm from Voyager, I'm a human, I'm from Earth, all of this information, then he's like, oh, we're in a first contact situation. Yeah. I can't tell you anything else. It's like, it's a little late to invoke the prime directive, buddy.
Forget I was here. Forget I said anything.
I know he's an ensign, but it seemed ridiculous. They aren't just going to that one asteroid as I assumed. I guess maybe I just missed some dialogue, but I assumed they were all going to one asteroid. But clearly, they're not. They're going to the whole asteroid belt, and plenty of them are missing the asteroids entirely and ending up in empty space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is.
I mean, I feel like kind of maybe the whole asteroid ring is just dead bodies.
I think that's where we were going. Yeah. I
think that's what it is. It's like some of them just solidify into rock over the years. Yeah.
I think that's why when they were like, Rains, what are you talking about? Those are rays of life or whatever, or death or whatever.
I don't think they were around the planet then. Again, I think it was a different time or dimension or something. But I do think that the rings may have been completely built by the bodies building up. Kim's very judgmental about the Hatil and his family pushing him out. I'm like, yeah, I'm judgmental too, but also you don't know the society. You're Starfleet, you should be better than I am. And stop being so judgmental. Yeah. Until you know the whole thing of it. Especially because then Kim doesn't care at all about him, tells him to go die in the mountains by himself with nobody to take care of him in a slow, painful death. So
yeah, it kind of landed halfway, which I guess might be okay between, maybe a TOS episode would have gone more with you shouldn't be doing this, and there probably would have been some God running things or whatever. In this instance, it was just, nope, this is what we believe. And I guess maybe there was some higher power, right? Doing all the beaming?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, the alien, they said it was a natural phenomenon, these vacuoles.
Yeah.
The aliens almost went sinister for a while of like, yeah, you can't leave. We're going to study you.
Right.
But they clearly didn't lock him in a room, and they let him have still some freedom. So it was kind of uneven and confusing, which I think is a lot of the reviews of Brown and Braga's shows after Star Trek. Uneven and confusing. I think that was a pretty common note he got.
Yep.
Warp core becomes a magnet for the body, so they need to get out of there. And Bellana's like, we need to leave. And Janeway's like, okay, we need to leave. I get it. Like, reluctantly, but whatever. And Bellana's not happy about leaving, but Paris is like, yep, flying course, we're done. Like, where was the Paris caring about his best friend Harry in this episode?
Good question.
He's so nonchalant about abandoning Kim. The guinea pig, they got Batara to be their guinea pig, and she like immediately died. So human experimentation, that's why you test on animals first. You don't just
Yep.
and they're like, well, she died. That's how she wanted to be. Okay, oh well.
Yeah.
The Kim does not have the same body shape as the dying man. The dying man's like skinnier and different height, and yet none of his family notices that the guy wrapped in bandages.
Yeah.
Doesn't like these are people that have been married to him or lived with him for a long time. I think they notice that it's a different body in there.
Yep.
I was gonna say with the little probes, even though that sucks, they kill them. At least they do kill them before they beam them to an asteroid and abandon their body.
Right. Yeah, that's a fair point.
But that goes into question the Doctor's motives about, like, oh yeah, well, this is all moving on. No, the Doctor knows you murder them, right? The Doctor knows it's wrong.
Yeah. And that's where I get into the assisted suicide thought of like, oh, okay, he knows if they're far enough down the road that this is a humane way to do it or whatever. And if you're you're promising them transference or carousel, then it's an easier sell too. And there's no talk of anything like overpopulation or anything like that. But so I feel like it is hitting on assisted suicide to a point, or just
I think it is. It seemed to just It seemed to just be terminal patients. So
yeah.
I got another note about Torres seems really sad about leaving me behind. I like that we get that follow-up that her and Kim bonded in the pilot. I wish we got some more in between or after. I don't feel like that's a relationship that gets followed up on at all. I did like that Voyager and Janeway specifically have a focus on mental health where Kim's like, I'll be back on duty in the morning. And she's like, no, take some time to reflect. I don't think you need to couch it in the old people think life goes by too fast, so take time to smell the roses crap. I think just mental health. Yes. Yeah. Don't jump right back into it.
Yeah, I really like that scene. Of course, I love Janeway at this point. And one of the 3 reviews I read, little capsule reviews, the guy who didn't like the episode, he said the only reason to watch it was for that last scene, especially, which I thought, again, that to your point, that was a great way to. She delivered it, even the ageism part of it. She delivered it so well, and my takeaway was more the hey, take some time to deal with this, absorb this, that aspect of it. So I think that's a cool way to end the episode. And isn't Kim the one who invited her to sit with them in the first or second episode? Wasn't that the deal?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that's
he was like, let's be friendly, Captain.
That's a nice bookend there as well.
Good payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I Sisko is my favorite captain, always has been. I wish Shane was here so I could tell him Janeway so far is kind of giving him a run for his money. Like she comes out the gate, whereas it takes Sisko a while. Even in season 3, I'm not sold on Sisko yet. It's seasons 4 through 7 Sisko that won me over, but I like him. Yeah, and the scenes with Jake are really, really strong. But in terms of captainship, he's done a number of small scenes that make me appreciate him, but Janeway I feel like has more. Like right out of the gate, she is a great captain. Already both of them outrank Picard for me. Sisko and Janeway are already above Picard.
I was having that conversation with the person who watched this episode with me because they were like, I was telling them that how I was telling you guys, like I really like Janeway, and obviously Kate Mulgrew is an attractive woman, but well beyond that, captivating, and I love the character separate from the acting and the performance, which is fantastic. I love that character, and so I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I said, I think she's my number 2 right now, and I told her, but you said, hang on, Sisko, and she was like, well, isn't Picard higher for you? I said, no.
No.
And again, I love Picard too. But
because I know what is coming with Sisko, she has not displaced him. But I love her. If we were comparing season 1 DS9 to season 1 Voyager, she'd be blowing him out of the water for sure. So I know Janeway does not get any less interesting as time goes on. I think she's a very compelling character. I think maybe because of the huge age gap, I did not, as a child, because I watched most of these episodes as a teenager, I was not like, oh, Janeway's so attractive. But I will say, on this watch through, I'm like, Janeway's pretty darn attractive because now I'm about the age she is on the screen. Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, I would absolutely be in the Janeway. Like, ask her on a date or something. Because now that I'm that age, I always liked B'Elanna Torres a little more, although she's had very little to do yet.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely a very attractive woman too. But Kate Mulgrew does amazing eye acting, and she does a thing that I think still gets done now. I think I noticed in a couple movies I saw recently as well. But it's something Katie Holmes used to do on Dawson's Creek. But a lot of the eyes moving, even if they don't have to be, and it, for whatever reason, I think that it pulls you in. And I don't think it's a tick I don't think it's a conscious, I'm going to move my eyes. I think it's being in the moment and reacting and like trying to soak everything in that the other person's saying, which is acting and reacting. So she does great stuff just with her eyes of showing you what's going on. Like if you just had her eyes lit as if it was an old Trek TOS episode, you would know everything that's going on with her and with the episode. And so, again, a love letter to Kate Mulgrew already, 8 episodes in, 7 episodes in. My one other note on this episode is my alternate episode, which was instead of them ending up in asteroids or on Voyager, the vacuole send them to the place in Jersey from Being John Malkovich, where people end up after being John Malkovich. Instead, they end up on the side of the turnpike in New Jersey. So that was my alternate episode. And that is
great movie. Yeah. The lesson I have, we've kind of touched on, is Janeway says there may be an afterlife. And again, she's such the scientist. So I love that she is the one that says, yep, don't know. Like,
it's not quite Spock's I like to believe there are possibilities, but she's kind of saying it's possible.
Yes. Great, Captain.
Hey, it's Shane. Fortunately, I'm not able to make it to this week's recording either, so I'm just going to give you some of my thoughts about this week's episode, Emanations. Overall, I would say really interesting. It's a kind of a thought episode, There wasn't a whole lot of, no space battles, no real big sci-fi tech. It was more cerebral, which was pretty interesting. And boy, those Dutch angles on the planet, am I right? Boy, they just tilted that camera to make you feel just a little uneasy, which is really interesting. The whole, was it another dimension? Was it just another part of space? We never really found that out, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. Honestly, both of this week's episode and last week's episode were a little, different. They took some liberties. They tried some different kind of genres storytelling wise. So that was pretty neat. Photon Torpedo Watch, we're still at 37. Don't worry, gotcha. As for the various things, all right, we'll start with annoyance. Annoyance for me, probably the dude's family. I mean, oh, he hurt his leg. Better go die. I mean, come on. We might think that in real life about family members, but like we can't say that out loud. So, yeah, definitely the family. For drinks, I'd say, got to go with Harry Kim. The man's been through it. He has had one doozy of a day. Boy, oh boy. Just transporter accident, being held prisoner, died, But hey, he got 2 days off, so that's a pretty equal balance, I think. As far as inspired, I'd say my inspiration here would probably be Janeway. As a science officer and captain, when she was talking to the revived woman, she could have been really crass about it, really scientific, not crass, scientific, but she was being very delicate, which was really nice, and that just goes to show what a great captain she is. So pretty cool. Yeah. And overall ranking, I'm going to have to go, if I could say neutral, I would say neutral. If you're forcing me to pick higher or lower, I'm going to go lower, only because I do like the tech stuff and I do like the sci-fi stuff, and that wasn't really in this episode. And while it was good, and so was last week's, just the less techy kind of science stuff was a bummer for me. Not by much, but just a little bit. So a little bit lower. But overall, again, this week's episode, Emanations, last week's episode, Ex Post Facto, both great stuff. So looking forward to the next one. Hopefully I can be back in person or live anyway. So thanks for having me. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Let's get to the rankings then.
Yes.
Here, I'm having a drink with for Emanations.
Our boy Harry. Let's see what he's been through.
I'm going to go with Torres. She was very worried about Harry, even more so than his best friend was. So
fair point.
She probably needs a drink to blow off some steam, thinking she lost him. I'm grateful that you made it home. Who was your annoyance in this episode?
Patera. I think we hinted at this earlier, but yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. It's like, be grateful you're alive.
Like,
I get you're overwhelmed, but just take a couple deep breaths. You don't need to just.
I thought the good scenes with her came from the other characters' interaction with her, not from anything she was doing. And in that, I'm not blaming the actress. I just thought the character was just like, all right, already. We get it.
Yep.
But,
agreed.
So.
And your inspiration this week?
I went with Harry for this too, and I can't remember why, to be honest. Even because I was just ragging on him earlier about not freaking out. But maybe that's what I appreciated about him, is he stayed in the moment and tried to inspire that guy to go out and die in the mountains. But so yeah, can't tell you why at this point, but that was my choice.
Yeah, I don't know why you picked him. I'm going with Chakotay. I liked his respect for the dead.
Fair.
And his just reminding people that it's not all about the science and the mission, that there's actual people involved, and you have to respect the bodies. And I liked how quickly Janeway was just like, yep, I'm going to listen to you. But yeah, I'm giving Chakotay for calling that stuff out.
Okay.
Chakotay is great.
Yeah.
Ranking the episode. Let's start with last week's. Better or worse than Ex Post Facto?
I think better, because at least it's trying to say something. But
yeah, I'm kind of torn, but I could lean towards better. Not because of Harry Kim. I disliked Harry Kim in this episode a lot. But the Janeway stuff, the philosophy on death and all of that, I think there's some interesting things here. I do think it doesn't quite land the things it floats.
Yeah.
But
it's not a slam
I'll give
dunk.
you there's some. It definitely left me with more to think about than last week. I'll give you that.
Yes, that's fair.
Above Ex Post Facto is the Cloud.
Yeah.
I would say the Cloud was a bit more cohesive in what it was trying to tell.
Yeah. I feel like the Cloud is feeling like a good ceiling on, like, all right, you have to bring a little something to get above that, and then we can talk. I know.
Yeah, the Cloud's number 2 right now. I had the Needles number 1, but yes,
well, there you go.
I think Needle being the Romulan they communicated with.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like Caretaker right now is number 6 of 8.
Wow.
Our pilot. I don't think we've ever seen a pilot sink so far so fast.
Yeah, and I don't think we hated it or anything. It's just
no, we didn't, but it's just not. It's to me, I don't think Emissary is a particularly strong pilot either. Nor is Nicanor Farpoint, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think original series still has the best pilot.
Yeah,
and whether you count it as the Cage or Where No Man Has Gone Before, either way, both strong.
And maybe it's because, and for better or worse, both. I think the TOS ones are like, especially Where No Man Has Gone Before, because that was the edict, was like, let's get to the action. Whereas I think these, for better in some ways, are like, let's get to know these people on these on the ship or whatever. And I think those do pay off later, but within the context of the first episode, not so much. So
no, but also like, I wish Voyager let us get to know the characters more. Like, especially that Maquis versus Starfleet divide. Don't you feel like it's already disappeared?
Yep. Yeah. And
that's the number one complaint fans have about this show, is immediately the conflict's gone.
And I'll say, for these last 2 episodes, I feel like maybe that's a lot of what's missing, is like, hey, there isn't a ton of character development in these last 2 episodes.
Chakotay and Torres and Seska. Seska's Maquis. Sure. You probably, I don't know if you know Loaster Pips, they're Maquis Pips. The Maquis Pips are different. They're not the circles. They're like a little symbol thing.
And we had
these people, we need to see more of.
Yeah.
I will say Seska's long-term character arc has to do with her Maquis time. Okay. So they're going to bring some of that kind of back around. Not really, but kind of. But yeah, it's very much like, come on, let's deal with that. That feels It feels way too easily papered over.
Yeah.
Anyway, next week, sticking with Voyager, prime factors, the crew encounters a hedonistic alien race.
Hey.
With an ability to travel through the galaxy at will. An ability that may be the key to Voyager's returning home.
Gilligan's Island.
Did I tell you Voyager is only a 9-episode series? I think it's 175 episodes, roughly.
Oh, man. I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, I will say I'm looking at the pictures, and there's a guy with his hand on Janeway's shoulder, and he definitely seems to be invading her personal space. And there's a picture of Kim laughing with an attractive young woman in 2 pictures. And then there's a picture of Seska and Torres looking pretty jolly.
All right.
So those are all. Oh, and then as I'm scrolling through, we get a picture of Tuvok looking very concerned. So yeah.
All right.
Oh, I see Seska and Carrie, our wannabe chief engineer that Torres beat out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing both of them in these pictures. So we got Carrie, we got Seska, it'll be fun. Until then, live long.
And then keep on emanating and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?